So without further ado, I am delighted to introduce Warren Shanks and Carrie Wolfson, who are both children's librarians for the Denver Public.
Thanks, Christine. This is Carrie here. Welcome to Supporting Developing Readers at the Library, Literacy-Based Programs. We're going to start with some learning objectives today. So, by the end of today's webinar, it's our goal that you'll be able to articulate the impact of third grade literacy, explain the 5 grade level reading skills, identify some criteria for selecting book titles to support developing readers, and consider some ways to incorporate those 5 reading skills into your programs and interactive spaces. And to get us started today, we'll do an icebreaker chat. You can go ahead and use the chat pod where we've all been introducing ourselves, or go ahead and use this one in the middle of the screen and share an example of a book-based program that you've offered at your library. Some Pete the Cat, book-based story times around Pete the Cat. Awesome. And if you haven't done one personally, feel free to share one that you've heard about or a colleague has done. All right, Jennifer does some weekly story times. Oh, and an escape room based on Escape from Mr. Lemoncella's library. That sounds awesome. I see Annika does story times each week. Nancy's doing family literacy kits with books with art-based activities that also build science skills. Awesome. Christy's doing a Halloween hop, an annual event with each room has a different book theme. Very cool. And Wendy does weekly story times at daycares and the local preschool. Awesome. I see Jennifer's done some Captain Underpants with K through 5th. Great. Alex M. Oh, choose your own adventure summer over the summer with book character parties. Oh, that sounds really fun. Sharon goes to daycares to do story times, schools, read after school daycares with some STEM enrichment. Oh, and Katie has works with some beginning readers book clubs. Awesome. These are such great ideas. Read Eric Carle books while kids draw. We're excited about the escape room. Cool. I think there'll be lots of great ideas that come out of this program today. It sounds like everyone is doing lots of terrific book-based programming already. And please, as we go, feel free to type comments and questions in the chat pod, and we'll try and respond. So yeah, book-based programming, it's kind of our bread and butter at the public library. And for our youngest kids, for those of us who are doing lots of story times, we are already using the Every Child Ready to Read framework. And what we'll cover today is how to apply a similar framework to kind of the next level of kids, those K through 3rd graders, and how to bring a similar level of intention and awareness to supporting kids who are moving from ready to read to learning to read. Oh, there's still some great ideas coming up in that chat. All right. So why are we focusing on developing readers, or what we're also calling grade level reading here at Denver Public Library? Well, a big reason for that is in Colorado, we know that 40% of students are reading at grade level. That means, of course, that 60% of students are not reading at grade level. And it's really hard to go on and succeed academically if you don't have those foundational skills to read. As you get to middle and high school, if your literacy levels aren't there, you're really going to struggle academically. And of course, after school, if your literacy levels are hovering around a 2nd or 3rd grade level, that's really going to be a challenge throughout, like navigating life. And for those of you who aren't in Colorado, we got these stats from our State Department of Education if you want to do a scan of kind of where your own state or city stands. In Denver, our reading levels are a little bit lower, with just 38% of kids reading at grade level. This is a map of the city of Denver, and you can see here the darker the orange, the higher the percentage of kids there are who aren't reading at grade levels. So you can see a couple of neighborhoods in Denver, upwards of 90% of kids aren't reading by third grade. And we have a lot of neighborhoods where 50 or 75% or above are still not reading at grade level. Another way to look at the importance of achieving third grade reading is from the Denver Office of Children's Affairs, which sums it up as beginning in fourth grade, children transition from learning how to read to reading to learn. So in response to kind of this environment of literacy in our community, our children's library here at Denver Public Library put together an internal work team to look at what is our role in supporting developing readers. Because at the public library, it's not our MO to limit children to a certain reading level or to limit our collections by reading level. So what does it mean for a public library to support this work? So after lots of research, the grade level reading team came up with this project mission to support and empower library staff, families, and educators to connect children K through third grade with diverse books they enjoy and that inspire curiosity to foster lifelong readers. And please, again, if I'm going too fast or too slow or you have questions, feel free to jot them in the chat. All right, so again, we see this as an extension of our early literacy work. We have that Every Child Ready to Read framework, which serves children from birth to 5 years old and their parents and caregivers and a lot of early childhood educators as well. And we wanted to be really intentional about that transition from ready to read to learning to read, and ensure that our library staff who are serving our customers and supporting families and educators are just as confident helping out folks in that K-3 reading range as they are serving our kids in early childhood. So our grade level reading team came up with 5 grade level reading skills around which to base our services. So if you haven't heard of these before, don't panic. These are things that we put together after lots of research and conversations with our colleagues at Denver Public Schools. Does anyone who was at our first session recall what those skills were? You can jot them in the chat if you do. And if you weren't at our first session, that 5 grade level reading skills handout over in the programs handouts will have more in-depth information as we go through these. All right, decoding, fluency, comprehension. Awesome. You all have very good memories, and we'll go into these a little bit more now. All right. So yeah, background knowledge. Our first skill we'll look at is background knowledge. So this is kind of everything we learn and know about the world from birth. So from the time that we're born, we're absorbing information about the world and we're calling on it to make meaning of stories and the world around us. So that could look like walking down the street while a caregiver narrates to us about the trees turning color. It could mean going to a baseball game or a concert. or it could mean someone reading out loud to us. So that's everything that we're bringing in from our life experiences and our reading that we can then use to apply to books to make meaning. So as a quick example of how background knowledge is important and to put us in the shoes of a kid learning to read, we're going to take a moment to read this passage. You can read it out loud to yourself, quietly to yourself, or follow along with me. Observations using X-rays, the Sunyaev-Zeldovich effect, and weak lensing and galaxy distributions from the optical band have, over the last decade, helped to unravel this exciting new frontier of cluster astrophysics where the infall and viralization of matter takes place. What did you all notice about that reading experience? See some folks are typing. Sharon says, yeah, it's very formal. It's very scientific. Lots of vocab I don't know, says Marianne. Yep, lots of unusual vocabulary. Diana, I was lost after X-ray. Yeah, exactly. So all of these things that you're adding, uh, Jennifer says, wow, that was a horribly constructed sentence, lots of jargon. So yeah, this is an example of how unless we have background knowledge in astrophysics, which presumably an audience reading this would, this is from a scientific report, it's really hard to comprehend what this means, even if you can sound out the words and say them. I don't have the background knowledge and vocabulary to know what a galaxy distribution is or an optical band or viralization. So even though I can technically read it, I can't bring meaning to it because of my lack of background knowledge in this area. And I might even struggle to sound out some of the words that are unfamiliar with me. So that's just kind of an example of why that background knowledge skill is important. Okay. Our next skill is decoding. So this is our ability to recognize the shape of a letter and then match it to an associated sound. And then we string all of those sounds together to pronounce words. And when kids sound out words, that's them decoding. And the relationship between the way letters look and the way they sound is called phonics. So understanding phonics helps us decode words. And unlike spoken language, our brains aren't hardwired for reading. So most kids need sustained, explicit phonics instruction to learn to read. And that's where schools come in, right? So in the library, how can we supplement that learning with the resources that we have? Well, the English language has 26 letters that make up 42 to 46 sounds, also known as phonemes when they're pronounced. And in this example here, the bold and plain text words say the same thing. So one uses the English alphabet and one uses phonemic transcription. And you can see how if you don't know what those symbols mean in the second word, you're not going to know how to sound out that word. So that's an example of where decoding is important. And kids who are learning to decode benefit from books with really simple words. So think of words that might have a consonant, then a vowel, then a consonant, like bat, cat, or mat. And when we match kids with books that have that really simple language, we're supporting their decoding skills. Our next grade level reading skill is reading motivation, and this is a public library speciality. A huge factor in developing reading motivation is choice. Kids who are allowed and encouraged to exert some choice over what they read are much more motivated and more likely to think of themselves as readers. And learning to read also takes a ton of practice and brain power. So kids who are excited to read will be much more likely to do that practice and kind of push through when their brains might be getting a little bit tired. And kids who are stoked about the topic they're reading about are more likely to develop the focus they need to become skilled lifelong readers. All right, our fourth skill is fluency. And this is the ability to read quickly, accurately, and with expression. So in other words, to read effortlessly. You'll see readers who aren't fluent yet will sound slow and choppy when they're reading out loud. And when readers are fluent, they're not taking up their brain space trying to decode words. Instead, they can apply that brain power to making meaning and connections with their background knowledge and vocabulary for the story. So word recognition is an important part of fluency, the ability to see a word and recognize it. But fluency really is supported when words are read together with expression. So we're going to do a little practice version of that right now. This is a passage from The Princess in Black by Shannon and Dean Hale. I'd like to invite you to read it out loud with expression wherever you are, or quietly to yourself, or you can follow along with me. And as you go, think about what it would be like to read with that expression if you were still struggling to sound out a lot of the words. So I'm going to read it out loud now. Princess Magnolia minced to the door. Her glass slippers went tink, 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 tink. "You're going to just leave me here?" said the Duchess. "I'll hurry back," said Princess Magnolia. She smiled sweetly. She shut the door softly. And then Princess Magnolia ran. So hopefully all of you were reading out loud for your colleagues wherever you are. But did you notice anything in reading that where if you didn't have those decoding skills, it might have been challenging to read fluently out loud? I see Amy is typing. For me, when I read this, I realize words like minced and slippers and duchess, those might really be words that kids would stumble over. And fluency really hits home for me when I can hear myself or someone else just reading that passage effortlessly and bringing expression to it. And Amy's saying it was just going to say it's fun to figure out because they sound fun. Minced and tink. Yeah, there's some motivation in there too because these are really fun sounds. All right, our last grade level reading skill is comprehension. So this is the ability to understand and or explain what you are reading. Successful readers can identify what they do and don't understand and then use strategies to problem solve. So some examples of questions around comprehension are things like, what happened in the story? What's the setting? Who's the main character? And how did the story end? So if you've read The Snowy Day recently or recall it and you can answer some of these questions, that's an example of your comprehension. And kids can demonstrate their comprehension or engage in comprehension when we have conversations with them about these books. All right, any questions about those grade level reading skills? You can download the 5 grade level reading skills PDF. There's a lot more information in there, and in our first session we go into this more in depth. And the other tool that's great about the 5 grade level reading skills handout is that it includes a lot of casual vocabulary you can use with caregivers and educators when you're chatting about these things with them. So Marianne asks, could you talk about problem solving in comprehension? Marianne, I think that sort of refers to if a kid recognizes that they don't know a word, they can maybe seek out an answer from another source. And we can do a little bit more digging into that as well. Does anyone else have a response for that? All right. So yeah, Marianne, that might be other things like calling on your background knowledge or taking initiative to get more answers in order to comprehend your text. Okay. We are going to move on to a chat. If anyone was working in libraries when Every Child Ready to Read was first implemented, we're curious to hear what was it like? Were there challenges or barriers to Every Child Ready to Read? And then we're also curious to hear what you're already doing that connects to grade level reading in your programs. So Nancy, yeah, it was challenging to use very technical language with parents. And it was uncomfortable at first to insert literacy asides. Did it get, were there opportunities or things that got easier about ECRR or that worked for you all as it was integrated? So Nancy says we developed some best practices which made it more accessible. Yeah, definitely got easier and helped me be more intentional around the activities that I planned. Yeah, and ECRR went through, like it started as 6 really technical skills and then was kind of distilled into 5 practices that had a more conversational and relatable tone. So Jennifer's saying that the Reading Buddies program, they do some practice with a teen or adult volunteer. Is maybe an opportunity to incorporate some grade level reading stuff. So that's, yeah, or that's something that you're already doing. Yeah, the 5 practices are so much easier to explain, for sure. Yeah, and with these 5 grade level reading skills, like I haven't found it effective to necessarily go and talk about phonemes with a caregiver who's just coming in to like get a great book at their child's level. But again, we do have lots of sort of casual vocabulary you can use, like sounding out, letter sounds, exploring and expanding. So check out that handout for some more. Sharon, we developed a Build a Better Reader display about the same time that we incorporated ECRR. Cool. All right. We'll take maybe 1 or 2 more comments, and then I'm going to turn it over to Warren. We'll have some more time to discuss and ask questions at the end of this presentation as well. Working with daycare teachers is challenging since the workforce is changing. Yeah, and I'd say that's the same with K-3 educators too. There can be a lot of turnover. And Marianne says there's a program where kids can read aloud to dogs without any direct instruction. So yeah, that definitely connects to that practice piece and motivation. Nice. All right. I'm going to turn things over to Warren, who's going
All right, thank you, Carrie. Hello, everyone. It's finally my turn to talk. We are going to look at some supportive elements that books have for supporting developing readers before we move to how these skills look in some of our programs that we've conducted. We're just going to be super brief here because a lot of this will be fleshed out in session 3, so show up in September for that one. Let's see here. Excuse me. So we have started tagging with some local subject headings, books that we have identified as being good support for developing readers. We have 2 subject headings we use. We use early books and transitional books. So those just starting to read, as well as those getting into books with chapters and some longer sentences and stuff like that. We've identified books throughout all of these collections you can see here. The intention of this was to not make a new collection, but to find great materials throughout all of our collections, so there's no stigma, no one has to go to a special section or anything like that. They can find, if they just want beginning readers, they can do that. If they just want graphic novels, they can just go there. And we pull many of our books that we tailor our programs to from these selections here. And they're all going to have lots of lovely supporting elements. Like Mr. Toad here, good images that support the text, lots of repetition, short sentences, early on, 1, 2 syllable words, kind of stuff like that. And again, more fleshed out in session 3, so please come back for that one. Let's look at some programs. Our goal with creating literacy-based programs is to create fun and easy to implement programs for kinder through 3rd grade, where they can practice and gain confidence reading, and where caregivers in their lives can pick up tools and resources and learn about other services we have to support them, as well as ways to foster family engagement beyond the library. We want this to inspire activities and more reading and more learning beyond our walls. Our literacy-based programs include activities to support one or more of the skills, and they have been slotted into all of our programs, whether it's a drop-in program, a staff-led program, a hired presenter. We're going to look at several different examples here. Starting with a program we did called Super Truck Celebration. We picked Super Truck because, as you can see in that top left corner there, half of the sticker, the Geisel Award, it's an honor book. The Geisel Award is given annually to authors and illustrators for the most distinguished American book for beginning readers. So a great source that we pull from for our developing reader materials. And it's got popular subject matter, trucks, usually a crowd pleaser, works for a good age range, and in addition to supporting developing readers, this also works for early learners, early learning too. So for the program itself, this was one of the earliest ones we made when we were trying to incorporate these skills. So I think this one actually has all 5 skills, which is kind of a rarity for us. So we started thinking the skills first of all after we had the book, and to cover fluency, we thought, All right, how do we have smooth and expressive reading where we can't guarantee that parents are going to read the book aloud or know how to read fluently or be willing to read it at all? So we dropped in a listening station, which actually went very well. We just set up a little table in there, a CD player, headphones with a splitter so two people could listen at once, and we own SuperTruck as a book pack, so it's the book with the CD, which is a very successful collection, amazingly enough, considering that cars don't even have CD players anymore. But it's still plugging along. We also threw in, as we do with most of our programs, a book display. This isn't one from that program, but just to highlight our awesome bins that we love so much here. For flipping through, like I like to think of how I flip through vinyl at the store. Attendees can flip through some materials with this. We also just do the face-out book displays too. But always good reading motivation to have additional materials to the related subject. Thinking about comprehension and maybe some decoding in this one here. We do a lot of writing prompts. The one for this program was draw a picture of your truck, and then the questions were, if I were a truck, I would be a blank truck. My superpower would be blank. I would help people buy blank, which is a pretty exciting activity, and SuperTruck does well to inspire it with SuperTruck's secret identity and their regular everyday garbage truck persona, and then the snowplow super ability. And someone made their truck with our Build-A-Truck thing where we just supplied a bunch of shapes. So someone's super truck was a pizza truck, which that just looks like a slice of pizza there. And to the right, we have our flannel board. Retelling, we try to have a lot of props for retelling. Someone went above and beyond with their amazing flannel skills here and made all the vehicles from the book. But retelling works on comprehension and is always a fun activity. So this is one where mostly a drop-in program, and staff will pop in and out to reset materials and refresh. So to look for meaningful interactions and try to model and inspire, we pop in and we just ask questions about what they're making, and try to model how to expand conversations for caregivers. But we do also put out a lot of prompts for inspiring interactions as well. Our second program we're looking at here is based on the Real Poop on Pigeons. I unfortunately have no photos from this, so this is all we've got here, the lovely cover with this with all the pigeons here. We chose this one because it's graphic format. It's a good reading level, good fit for developing readers, as all of the Toon books are. Graphic format books developed for developing readers. Good support. When scheduling our Summer of Adventure program, we approached performers asking them if they could tailor to a specific book. Nature's Educators was on board, and they had pigeons. So we got them to tailor a program for this. They'd already actually been doing that. They had like a Harry Potter book program and a Pokemon program. Don't know how those work, but they sound amazing. We chose pigeons because we felt city kids could easily relate. Everyone's probably seen a pigeon, and we already had a different owl program that sounded like we had raptors or something covered. More exciting birds, I hate to say. So to start out this program, a staff member hopped up there and actually read this aloud, actually shared this for the group. So we had some reading fluency there, and the Nature's Educators hopped up there and did their thing and provided tons of background knowledge As always, we had our book display with other related nonfiction tie-ins and, of course, Mo Willems pigeon books and stuff like that. We didn't hit all 5 here, but the skills we hit pretty hard, I think. And it's tough to encourage meaningful interactions here, but we did have staff attend to model for caregivers again. So when the Nature's educators said, let's make some bird sounds, we were the first ones to hop up there and make everybody feel comfortable interacting. Our next program, we do every spring and winter break. We have a week of maker programs. Staff is almost present the whole time, but they do pop in and out. It's a 2-hour block of maker time with a loose book tie-in. We fill this cart in the image here with a variety of materials, being intentional about there being a product. Should the customer want to do that and actually make a specific product, like maybe the leaf mobile there, but also having it set up so they can explore process and just make whatever they want. I think this was the first time we did this. We did winter break. We picked 4 books. We were closed the first, so nothing for that one. We picked Sleepless Night because that is an awesome series, Adventures in Cartooning. Another graphic novel with good humor and good reading level for the targeted audience. And the whole series is kind of based on creating your own comic, and that's what we did for that program. So we had all the materials to make and draw and color and everything. Zapato Power, a kid who finds shoes and gets the power of speed. We did a make your own superpower, make your own superhero. So people actually made kind of models of their superhero. They also kind of made costumes. There were some like cuffs, like Wonder Woman kind of thing, and helmets and all sorts of stuff made for that program. Not a box. We just did cardboard. That's another good one that works for early literacy through developing readers. It was also a great book that people could just read the whole thing in one sitting. And people made all sorts of creations, lots of teamwork, lots of independent work. One family made a whole pirate ship, which was very impressive. Zoe and Sassafras, Dragons and Marshmallows was inspiration for making your own imaginary friend. We had some pretty good creations there. I don't have any images, again, from those, but I have an image of something else we did in the makerspace. We had this cooking-inspired program where didn't find any specific book. We didn't have a specific book for this, but we did put out lots of cookbooks, and which are great for background knowledge. And at the very least, this was good reading motivation, because we did have a lot of books check out from this program. This writing prompt or instructions are good for decoding, which this was my favorite one I saw. Cheese pasta, ingredients noodles, cheese sauce. I think that says greenery garnish. And then we have sequencing on the bottom, which is good for working on comprehension. It's kind of hard to read, but it says what to do. It says first, cook your noodles. We got those, check, in the image there. Then make cheese sauce. It looks like we used yarn for cheese sauce. Looks delicious. And finally, plate and garnish. And we have this lovely creation here that someone, amazingly enough, didn't take home. So this is another one where we popped in and just encouraged that they try different things. If something didn't go as planned, we pop in and try to talk through alternative ideas of how to use the materials in a different way or how to accomplish what they want to. Just just try and try again, and encourage that their initial failure is great, and they can go beyond. Reading conferences is an internal term. We do not call these. We don't use these with the public. They are modeled off of a high school English teacher's experience doing this same-ish thing, but we are talking to much younger readers. The sign here on the left says, "What are you reading? Tell a librarian about your book. We'll help you find your next great read, and you'll earn a prize," which we make these buttons on the right here in-house. Our teen volunteers actually make our buttons for us on our button maker. We have several of these signs throughout our space, and it's a good intentional way to start a conversation with customers. It helps us build relationships and make people feel welcome, just more likely to come back to the desk and ask us for more recommendations, or just come and talk to us about anything. Very easy to implement. But this is one that all staff should be aware, and maybe shared some guidance of how to navigate these conversations. Customers should feel comfortable coming up to a shelver, a security clerk, a page, a librarian. As we all know, on the floor, everyone's a librarian. So they should be able to walk up to anybody and tell them about their books. This conversation can be, for us, it can be anything from, "Hey, what are you reading?" They tell us the title of their book and that they liked it. "Here's your prize. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing." But we also have questions for expanding the conversation. We have nonfiction and fiction specific. So we might ask, "Why did you choose this book?" Or, "Tell me what you like," all the regular stuff. We also have some good questions like, "Do you think you could be friends with this character in real life?" And it starts some very fun conversations. Our reading area exhibits are this is pretty much completely passive, but lots of options for our customers to do here. We have this lovely cabinet that we bought from Lakeshore, and the program here is Pink is for Blobfish. Whatever we have out lasts for 3 months, and it's open when we're open. This is just a public reading space where we have this. There's a table in front of it, which is our writing station attached to this. They're modeled after the Children's Museum, hence the name exhibit, and that they're out for extended period of time. Thankfully, that hasn't been a confusing name. We do share this name with the public, and no one's came looking for an art exhibit or anything. In the pic here, you can see we've got lots of tie-in books across the bottom cubbies. We've got nonfiction and fiction mixed in there about colors and animals, just to expand on the Pink is for Blobfish read. We chose Pink is for Blobfish because it's a good one that you can open up, read a couple of pages, and be satisfied, or you can read the whole thing. And then it had some good ideas. It provided for easy ideas for activities. We have, to the left there, you can see that same flannel board we used for retelling in Super Truck. We use that for matching images of the animals that come up in Pink is for Blobfish with their names, so separate pieces that you can move around until you've solved the puzzle, I guess. We also have, in those tubs that you can see across the top, printouts for this animal scavenger hunt. We just use the same images and put them throughout our children's space. And it's a great activity for this, but it also works as a great activity for someone who's just looking for something to do, someone who has 5 minutes. We can always direct them to this. Decoding is always kind of a tough skill to work in. This has been my favorite decoding activity. It's a animal mix and match flip book. So I think you can probably tell from the image, but you turn that bottom and you change the bottom or the top of the animal. It says on the top there, the prompt is first half of animal's name, PAR. At the bottom, second half of animal's name, TLE. So we've got a partle. We've got a half parrot, half turtle creature here. This has been a really, really funny activity to see kids make, and it's been pretty easy for them to comprehend. And if it's not, they pop over to the desk and we talk this through, and it's been a really rewarding activity. Author visits are another way we support developing readers. This lovely human being here is the author of the Narwhal and Jelly books, Ben Clanton. So their Narwhal and Jelly books are fantastic titles that support developing readers. And the author visits are the ultimate reading motivation, it seems like. All their materials check out nonstop. They're all just gone the whole time leading up to the program. And aside from all the lovely benefits that come from a regular author visit, we ask all of our authors to prepare some interactive element. Ben's was he wanted us to purchase some blank books, and he'd do a workshop where kids can make their own book, and he'd have some kind of inspiration. He helped them mash up, like our mix and match book, kind of two things. A lot of kids used unicorns as their inspiration, so we had taco acorns and corn acorns, which was corn with a unicorn horn. And we had some sort of boombox jellyfish thing, and you can see him in this next one, his book signing, where these kids were still excited about the book they were making, where they made moose jelly. That is super adorable there, and one of my favorite things I've seen, I think, this year. Moose jelly. There it is. Oh, I love it. And then all of these programs that we do, we make a template, or we have a template that people follow to make program guides so that we can push these out system-wide and reuse them. That pink is for blobfish exhibit was actually initially a staff-led program called Factologists that we did, but it was reworked for that based on the template or the program guide. And these are linked in our handout also. Oh, there's conversation in the chat box that I'm ignoring.
We were just talking about
Authors.
library or author visits.
Author visits are can be expensive. We've kind of prioritized having one a year. Ben Clanton was here for he was visiting 2 schools, and then he just visited us for free. So we've kind of partnered with schools and had that work out perfectly for us a couple of times. So that went pretty quick. Do we want to share some ideas about how to plug in some grade level reading skills into past programs or future programs? Or we can do questions too, kind of whatever works.
And I'll also dive in, this is Carrie again, and say all of those amazing templates that Warren just talked about, if you want to download them or use them to develop your own programming, those are linked on the webinar's main page, so you can explore those. And that literacy-based programming using the 5 grade level reading skills handout that is here in our Adobe interface also provides lots of great ways to embed those skills in your programs.
Authors Skyping in for free. That's a really cool idea. I've never seen that. That'd be great.
So as we wrap up, if you guys have ideas that you kind of are taking away from today's session about maybe some of the programs you're already offering and how they could be tweaked to offer more of the elements that were mentioned in today's webinar, you can add that, or you can feel free to ask more questions if you have want some more details on some things before we wrap up for today. So we'll give you just a couple minutes to type in either box. And Mary Ann had a comment that she said she noticed that your signage for the different activities looked like they included the 5 skills language.
And sometimes we do include the language. That was, I think that one was from one of the early programs where we try to make it more customer friendly now on our signage and not use any jargon or any internal language. So we have gotten away from that a bit. We've actually, in one of the documents, I think the 5 grade level reading skills, I think that's that one. At the bottom, we've come up with like keywords. We found that customers were coming to us with a variety of terms, so we kind of collected those. And so decoding is, sight words and sounding out, and just other words that we hear more often.
Mary Ann is asking, do you feel it's important to educate families about what these skills are and to use the 5 skill names? That's a really great question, and I think that answer might vary a little bit depending on the librarian at the desk that handles this. I think for just answering for myself, the most important thing for me is to feel comfortable talking casually with families about these things. I think one thing that we've worked on moving away from, and I don't know if this is similar at your libraries, but often we've seen when a parent comes in and they say, my child just got a reading level X24 at their school, a response might be, oh, well, we don't level like that here. And we've really tried to move away from that response to a response that is, yes, we have lots of books at that level. Let's help you connect. And then that can start a conversation about different ways these skills can tie in to a family who's learning to read. So I think, Mary Ann, I do feel like it's important to educate families about what these skills are, but I feel like it's really important to do that in a conversational, non-jargony way that is empowering the family and meeting them where they're at. So my priority would be to kind of use those conversational terms. For example, with background knowledge, we might talk about expanding vocabulary and discovering new ideas. With a parent, we might use that instead of something more technical. And for reading motivation, we might talk more about how important it is to enjoy a book and find a genre that we love, but really back that up with, be prepared to back that up with, we know there's research that says when children have these choices, that really helps them in these ways. So I think for me, it's starting with conversational language, but having kind of the deeper knowledge to back that up as a conversation goes on, or if a parent or family really seems like they want to go in that direction. What do you think, Warren?
I will start with the skills.
Yeah.
Like if someone seems like they're into it, but then you see their eyes gloss over, and I back up. So I'm just navigating every conversation differently, kind of.
Yeah.
We'll keep the questions coming. Just as a reminder, you can access all of the past session, part 1, where we talked about Reader's Advisory for K through 3rd graders. It is on the CSL In Session website, which is in the chat area in blue. Part 3 is going to be in September, and part 4 is going to be in November. Those are also listed on the CSL In Session website. And I don't know if you guys wanted to talk a little bit about all of your lovely resources. Also, the archive, when I post it, will have all of these resources. And when you view the archive, all of the links, both in the chat and in the slides, should work for you guys, because I know that might be a lot.
Yeah, so you can, if you want to take a deeper dive into some of this research, we have both further reading here in this PowerPoint, and then there's also a handout on the CSL page of further resources. One that is a really, really great starting point that I'd love to highlight is just the Reading Rockets website. And you can visit Reading Rockets and explore their, let's see, I'm looking here, they have lots of topics on helping struggling readers and reading topics. This is a really great place to go to immerse yourself a little bit more in this language and these topics to help yourself get comfortable talking about it with your customers and your colleagues. And it's where we drew on a lot of research as well.
Well, as we wrap up today's, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, are there other questions or ideas?
Yes, if you do have questions, do feel free to put them in the chat. As we kind of wrap up the hour for today, I want to give a huge thanks to both Carrie and Warren for this wonderful presentation, as well as to the Denver Public Library for putting together this series. And I want to thank all of you for attending today. We do have a quick survey that we would love to have you fill out. We're always trying to get feedback on sort of the sessions that we're providing, etc. So the link in the middle of the screen should work. I'm also placing it in the chat. I don't yet have our next CSL in session description yet, but we will have one in June. So feel free to visit the CSL in session website, see what is upcoming. And if anybody needs a certificate for today's session, in about 2 seconds, I'm going to put my email in the chat area. I can't talk and type at the same time, but I'll put my email in there, and you can email me directly at the Colorado State Library, and I will provide you all, anybody who needs one, a certificate for attending today. So once again, thank you to our presenters, Carrie and Warren, and thanks to everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.